If you've been around this channel for very long at all, you know that I keep bees in Layens horizontal hives, like the one right there. Well, that brings up the question, what is this Langstroth hive doing in my backyard? Well, I want to tell you about that, and tell you about that swarm trap that's currently sitting on top of it. If you've watched my videos and have heard me talk about the Layens hives, you know that I have a bias towards the Layens hives over the Langstroth. And that's from having read and researched about both hive types, seeing the Layens hive in action before I started keeping bees, deciding that the Layens hive is better not just for the beekeeper in terms of less heavy lifting, but also for the bees. But a person could legitimately accuse me of not having any experience with the Langstroth hive to compare. And that would be very true. So I have this Langstroth hive here for two reasons. One is that I am planning to take the journeyman beekeeping class through the University of Montana, and for that class they recommend that the keepers use Langstroth hives to be consistent with the way that the class material is taught. So for that purpose, it seemed like a good idea to keep at least one Langstroth hive so that I can go along with the class lessons, even though a former student of the class told me it's not entirely critical to do that. But I have a second reason. Because I don't have experience with the Langstroth, I want to be able to speak intelligently, not just from what I've heard about what it's like to keep in a Langstroth hive. So I have this hive, and I am preparing to populate it with bees, and that's where the swarm trap comes in. So I recently did a trap out in a tree about 3 miles from my house. The trap out didn't go as well as it could have. The tree was at an odd angle. The entrance was about 15 feet up, which was just about as far as I could comfortably reach on a ladder. I wasn't able to set up the exit funnel as close to my swarm trap entrance as I would have liked. Things didn't go real well in getting the bees out of the tree. I had to try to do a forced abscond because we had a short time period to get the bees out before the tree is going to be cut down. And so I never found the queen. I did get a few bees, and those bees are in this box here. Now this swarm trap is one I built a while ago when I was considering using Langstroth frames. So it will hold Langstroth frames, it just has a space underneath those frames. So I used this box with Langstroth frames. Once I caught the bees out of that tree, I could just move the frames into this hive. Well, without catching the queen, I just have some bees. They don't make a viable colony. There's not much really that they can do without a queen. So I could just add a queen, but I don't have a queen on reserve. I could order a queen, but I think I'm going to do something else. The sensible thing, and a lot of beekeepers are probably saying this right now to your screen, why not just dump these bees out in front of another hive and let them join that hive? That would be the sensible thing. But I want to try something different. So I'm going to look into my Layens hives and find a frame that hopefully will have all stages of brood, along with some honey reserves, and I'm going to give that frame to these bees. I thought about using the Conversion Hive to migrate bees from Layens frames onto Langstroth, the opposite of what I did last year. But that's going to take time. And so what I think I can do is take a Langstroth sized top bar, put it on top of a Layens frame, and hang that Layens frame in this swarm trap. I'll let those bees make themselves a queen cell, let the queen emerge, hopefully go out, successfully mate, and get the colony started that way. Just gonna give it a try. I don't know if it'll be entirely successful. If it is, I'll have my bees to put into the Langstroth box. The first thing I'm gonna do is open up this box and see what I have inside. I'm expecting to find a handful of hopelessly queenless bees. And if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and move a frame over. If there's really very, very few bees in here, it probably wouldn't be worth the trouble and risk of a good brood frame to try to get them to make a queen. We'll just see what happens. But before we can decide what we're going to do, we need to see what we've got. Most of these frames are just open comb. There was one frame that had some nectar on it. And in a swarm trap, you normally would not put nectar, but in this case with the trap out, I wanted something that would really attract the bees to this box. So we put that in here, and I'm not seeing, okay, so we've got, on this frame that had the honey resources, we got a few bees on there, a few bees on this side, and they've still got some nectar in there. In fact, they're probably bringing some back in now. kind of empty on this side. So not many bees, but I think we got enough working in here that it may be worth seeing what they'll do if we add another frame, and we will add some nurse bees along with that frame and hopefully get these guys a good start on making a queen. So I'm going to try to pull a brood frame out of the Conversion Hive, which is one of the colonies that I have not split this year. They should have good population, should have good brood frames. This queen has been a pretty good layer in the past, so I'm hoping they'll have several good brood frames that I can select one and they won't be missing much, but we'll have a good frame to give to the other colony. And these bees are building out on this last frame. Anybody who's followed the Conversion Hive series knows it's taken them a while to get these frames built out. They have 5 Layens frames in here right now, which is kind of small, but now they're building on the last frame, so that's good. We're going to have to expand their space here. I'm not going to pull all these frames out. I'm just going through here looking for good brood frames. And my goodness, I think we're hitting the jackpot here. Look out, bees. Look at the brood on this frame. Got larvae up all the way to the top. Got some nectar stored up in there too. Larvae down across the bottom. I'm not seeing eggs in here, but seeing a lot of other brood. A lot of larvae. So that's a great frame, but I think I'm going to try to find one that has some younger brood on it. The amount of brood on that frame tells me that even more we're going to have to expand this hive soon, because they're about to see a population explosion. Now this one we have quite a bit of drone brood down there at the bottom. A lot of worker brood through the middle. Kind of a whole mix of stuff. We got some nectar in there, got some pollen, some bee bread, larvae down through there. Those are kind of drone cells at the bottom, so I don't want to get those eggs because they would not be fertilized. And for those who are confused by what I just said, the queen lays an unfertilized egg, which becomes the drone. The males come from unfertilized eggs, whereas the workers, the females, come from fertilized eggs. So yeah, I got a lot going on there, but any eggs they have in there are down towards the bottom, which will be our drones. Which leaves us just one more frame. I haven't seen my queen yet. She might be on the back side of this frame. It's kind of the same picture here. We got drone brood down at the bottom. Now they got more worker cells at the bottom here too. And a lot of this towards the bottom is new comb. Haven't seen my queen, but I'm also not seeing any queen cells. And I have a marked queen in here, so she should be somewhat easy to spot. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it looks like there are some queen cells, and they put them on the queen excluder. This is pretty crazy in here. I'm going to show you. So on that queen excluder, we've got queen cells. A lot of queen cells. There is one that's open, but I think it's one that just wasn't completed right there in the middle. More down below. Now, this might be a candidate frame. Yep, we got eggs in here. No real brood on. Oh, and there's my queen. Queen is on this frame. You see your little white spot bopping around there. What I actually will do is just pull some of these queen cells and give them to our new colony. All right, they are not going to like me doing this. I'm going to try to get this comb out in one piece. I don't think these are queen cells, actually. I think they're actually drone cells. They're just weird. But either way, it's blocking up this queen excluder. So we'll just put these frames back now, and I'll come back and add a couple more frames. Because one thing I almost forgot to do was to add a bar to the top of this frame so that we can hang it in that swarm trap. So I'm going to do that real quick. Bees don't like that. There. Do it quicker, bother them less. So I apologize I didn't get everything on video. I was kind of trying to work quickly and move everything over. And so I have now the Layens frame in here hanging on a bar the length of the Langstroth top bars. So it's hanging in there, got its brood and the eggs in there. And then I took those weird cells, which I'm starting to be convinced are just drone cells, but I stuck some of those in here. If any of those happen to be a queen cell, then they can work with those. There's some additional pieces here, but like I said, I think it's just kind of odd, haphazard drone comb. You can see one still emerging right there. It's calling them queen cells, but I don't think they really are. Some of them seem to have royal jelly in the bottom, but I actually think that was just larvae that I was seeing. So you can actually, it's kind of cool, you can see the larvae through the thin walls there. So a little lesson there. Now the bees that were on that frame, I didn't want to shake that frame because I didn't want to damage any of those eggs. I wanted them to be as viable as possible. And so I just used a brush, even though the bees hate being brushed. I swept them off onto this board in front so they can kind of walk up and in through the entrance, which makes it more likely for them to be accepted into this box by the bees that were here. If I just put them in through the top, then there's very likely going to be fights. But doing it this way, they have a greater likelihood of being able to go into that hive and not run into trouble. We've got this started, got a frame there with the eggs on it, so they should be able to make a queen. Hopefully they have enough of a population to kind of keep things going, but they do have all that brood that will be hatching out before too long. We'll see how things go and keep an eye on it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.